Hello and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I just want to go through some common console errors that we will get and some tips on how to debug our code. Obviously, I do a lot of tutorials on the channel and a lot of people will comment under them saying, oh, this isn't working, that's not working. I just want to kind of try and give you some skills on how to debug some of the console stuff. Because obviously, I'm more than happy to help and people have been posted in the comments and on Discord. But I can't always get to them, straight away. And then you're just sat around not being able to follow the tutorials. So hopefully you'll learn something in this video about how to debug your own code and solve some of the really common issues that I've been seeing in the comments. So let's just get straight into it. So I've got some scripts here. I've got 3 scripts and there's all sorts of stuff wrong with them. Obviously this is very contrived. I've set it up so there's a lot of different things that are broken and we're going to go through and fix them sort of one by one. So if I go over to Unity. So this is the first thing. So let's just start with the very basic. So this is the console and these are our errors. And if you actually click them and read them, these ones are quite simple errors. It'll tell you exactly what's wrong and it'll give you the folder and the script that it's wrong in. It'll give you the line where the error is as well. It'll tell you what it thinks is going wrong. And then you could either go to that script and navigate there, or if you just double click the error, it will take you directly to the script. So you can see here, if we look back at the console, it's saying that there's a semicolon expected on line 48 in our issues.cs class. We're at line 48 and it wants a semicolon. So we can do semicolon. So, and then we can save. We'll go back over to Unity and that's got rid of that. And then you'll see, again, same script, line 53, there is a closed curly brace expected. So again, we'll double click, we'll go back and you can see this line here. It doesn't hit another curly brace. We've got a curly brace, then the line kind of tells us that there needs to be a curly brace around here somewhere. So let's put that in. Oh, we'll do a curly brace, hit save, let's go back. So this will recompile and it'll throw up all our other errors. So this is the next issue. So the type or namespace name issues could not be found. Are you missing a using directive or a assembly reference? Again, this is in our issues tester script on line 8. So let's double click it and we'll go through to that. So you can see here that we've got public issues and issues is red, but we know that this class exists because it's called issues. We've got it here. We can also see that it's in the namespace, issue namespace. So if we go back over to issues tester, with Rider, which is the IDE that I'm using, I can press Alt and Enter. I believe with Visual Studio, it's Control and the period key, and that will generally tell you what the issue is. So if I press Alt and Enter here, we can import missing references in file, or import type issue namespace issues, which is what we want. We know this is a namespace issue because the error in the console kind of hints at that. Are you missing a using directive? And it says the type or namespace name issues couldn't be found. So if we press Alt and Enter, we are now using issue namespace, which is our namespace here. And that's that error solved. And you can see that that's gone from red to this nice purple color. And again, on Visual Studio, you can press Control and period, and that'll bring you up to the same window, sort of something similar to this. And it'll usually tell you to import the type. And you just click that and it'll do it for you. So that's that error fixed. Let's jump back over to Unity. Okay, so now we can see we've got a load more issues here as well. We can kind of ignore these yellow ones. These are warnings. It's just telling us that we're never actually using the variable I. They're good to keep an eye off, but they won't stop your code from working unless you did mean to use it and you've just forgot to use the variable somewhere, but it won't stop it won't stop the game from playing necessarily. You can see we've got 2 of these here. So if we go back over to assets, issues tester, line 13, we've got my method is inaccessible due to its protection level. And again, we know the class, we know the line, and we can double click it to take us there. So we can see here we've got issue script, my method, and we've got a red squiggle which says cannot access private method, my method here. If we go over to our issue script and look at that method, I've set it to private, which means that we can't get access to it from our other script. So that's a simple fix. We'll just change that to public. Back over to Unity, let's get rid of that one. So now we've got an object reference is required for the non-static field, method, or property issues my public int. And again, this is line 15 of the issue tester script. Let's double click to take us there. So here it looks like we're trying to access the issues class, and we're trying to get access to a public int. So you'd think that it would work on the sort of surface of it, but we are accessing the class type, not the actual object reference. So we need to know exactly which script we want to be calling this myPublicInt from. And again, if I press Alt and Enter, or you could press Control and period, it would usually give you some sort of tips on how you can fix it. In this case, we know that it wants an object reference, not a class type reference. So instead of referencing the class type, we need to reference the object. So we can do issueScript.myPublicInt. So that's that problem fixed. Now we've got the reverse of that. So member issues.myStaticInt can't be accessed with an instance reference. Qualify it with a type name instead. So that's the reverse of that. So on our issues class, we've got a static int which can be accessed from kind of anywhere. And we don't need a sort of object reference. We just need to reference the actual type. So we can use issues instead of issueScript, and then we can access our static int. So that's that one fixed. So the name myBool does not exist in the current context. So let's double click that. That's on line 42. So we've got debug.log myBool. If I Alt and Enter, it's saying that there's not a local variable called myBool, but I'm sure I've set that up. So let's go up. I've got private bool. Oh, and I've misspelt it. It's myCool instead of myBool. Now, this is a very common issue. Misspelling names because there's not a, a spell-in kind of spell checker. There's not always a built-in sort of spell checker. That could be, a really simple, that's one of the most common kind of things I would come across. Sometimes you'll see people with their private syntax, they'll have an underscore, and then you'll have missed it here, and you'll be like, no, it's definitely something called myBool. It's because there's a character missing usually, or it's misspelt wrong, or there's just not a, there's a typo. You've missed off the kind of semicolon, which was the first error we looked at. A lot of the times it's very simple stuff like that. So in this case, we'd said myCool instead of myBool, but we were accessing it with the correctly spelt version down here, and that was causing an error. So always check your spellings. So let's jump back over to Unity. This one, issues, line 49, issues parent.myPrivateFloat is inaccessible due to its protection level. So we've come across this issue a little bit earlier. So let's see what's different about this version. So let's double click that. So here we've got myPrivateFloat is equal to 5f, and we've got myProtectedFloat is equal to 10f. So if I go up here, we don't actually have myProtectedFloat or myPrivateFloat listed here, but we can see that issues is inheriting from a base class called issuesParent. So if we jump over to the issuesParent class, we'll go through here. You can see that we've got a private float, myPrivateFloat, and we've also got protectedFloat, myProtectedFloat. So this is a really common issue that you might come across again, especially, so if you've got scripts inheriting from a base class, you can access the sort of stuff from that base class from the child of that class, but you can't do it if it's marked at private. So private is for this class specifically, protected is for this class and anything that derives from this class, and then public would be from any class. So make sure that you are using protected variables if you want to access them sort of like further down the child line. You need to make sure you're only using the protected versions. And that's the same with methods as well. So you can see we've got a private void, myPrivate method, and a protected void, myProtected method. So within this method here, if I do myPrivate method, and I know this is a method on my on the parent, and you can see that it's come up as green, so it's definitely a so that's definitely a method, and it's, we've spelled it right, but we're getting the squiggle, and again that's because it's inaccessible due to its protection level. We need to use protected instead of private. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. So let's go back over to Unity. Okay, so that's all of the errors gone. We could now hit play and it would run. Let's get rid of these kind of warnings to have a nice clear log as well. So that's because we're not using that. So let's debug.log I. So we're now using that one. And then let's just delete these. We don't need them. Okay, so that's a nice clean log, no issues. So let's hit play and see if the game is actually working kind of at runtime. So we'll hit play, and immediately in the console here, we have an issue. So object reference not set to an instance of an object. Now on the sort of face of it, it doesn't give you this sort of script and script line, but if you actually look closely, it does. It says assets issues.cs line 26, and it even tells you the kind of method that it comes from. So it's the start menu on our issues, and it's specifically line 26. So let's double click. So here we've got my int list.count, and we've got my int list up here, but we've never actually initialized this list. It's null. So what we can do is we can say this is equal to a new list of type int, or we could do it in the actual start method as well. So we can do start my list int is equal to a new list of type int. So let's see if we've fixed that, and we'll hit play. Okay, so we've got another issue here. So let's take a look at this issue. So unassigned reference exception, the variable game object reference of issues has not been assigned. You probably need to assign the game object's reference variable of the issues script in the inspector. So it's specifically telling us what the problem is and telling us kind of what we need to do to maybe fix it. And if we actually click the error, you can see down here, it says the same thing, but it will tell you the script, the method, and the line that it's coming from. It doesn't say that up here, but it will say it when you investigate the kind of log a bit further. So again, double click. We can see that it's this line here. We're trying to set the game object references position just to a new vector, but that's not actually working because we haven't assigned it in the inspector. So let's make a new game object, and we can assign that in the inspector. So that problem shouldn't be a problem anymore. I'm just going to put this down here so it doesn't keep taken away from the console. So we'll hit play. Okay, so now we've nearly fixed this issue. So we've got a new error now. So now we've got an index out of range exception. Index was outside the bounds of the array. And again, it's pointing us to line 36 of the issues script. So let's double click. So here we are debug.logging, and we're logging so here we're doing debug.log, and we're trying to access index 5 of the myInt array. So let's have a look at our myInt array. So that's here, we've got myInt array, and we're setting it equal to a new int array with a size of 5. So you'd think that maybe that should work, but it's not. And that's because, you probably know this by now, but arrays are 0 based. So when we create a new int array here, we're setting it to a size of 5. Then to access that index in our array, it's actually going to be from 0 to 4 because they're 0 based. So we have to knock one off this. When you get those index out of range, it's because you've gone kind of outside of the array's range. So to illustrate that, we can do debug.log myInt array.count .length, sorry. We will access number 4, and then we'll try and get number 5. So we'll come out of here. So our int array has a size of 5. Index number 4 has a 0 in it, and that's just because that's a default int number, and we didn't actually set index 4 to anything. Then we get our index was outside the bounds of the array. So that's just something to be aware of. You may know that your count is, you may know that the array's length is 5, but with arrays being 0 based, we have to either do the length minus 1 to get the last slot in the array, or just make sure, if we're in a loop, that we're doing it to the length. So what you do need to do is, instead of putting in 5 directly, you could do the length minus 1, and that will offset it back to sort of being 0 based. And better yet, if you want to, you can do an index from end expression. So let's actually set this to, instead of just giving it a size of 5, let's actually set those values. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here, the values of our int array are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in the array. If we debug.log element 4, we're going to get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll print out 5. And then hopefully this debug.log will print out 5 as well. We go 5, 5, 5, So they are our debug.logs working. And if you don't want to do myIntArray.length -1, you can use the index from end expression. So we can use the like up bracket with 1, and that should do the same thing. So we've got 555. So it was a bit long. We focused on that for a bit longer, but that's a really common issue that quite a lot of people have by going outside the bounds of arrays, especially with the inventory system tutorial I've been doing. That's kind of list and array sort of based, so this comes up quite a lot. But that all seems to be working. So let's see what this next issue is. Object reference not set to an instance of an object, and this is in our start method as well. So just like our int list, the dictionary hasn't been initialized, it's not set to anything. So we could do my dictionary is equal to a new dictionary of type int and float. Okay, so here we are initializing our dictionary, so that's fixed that issue. So now we're going to go into a loop and we're going to add to our dictionary int I, which is going to be this index, and we're going to just make a random float, and so that's going to go into our dictionary. And I've done this based on myIntArray.length, which we know is 5. So it's going to go from, and we're doing I is less than 5, so we're going to go from 0 to 4. We're going to add them to the dictionary, plus we're going to go through a loop, which will be 0 to 4, and then we're going to add to the dictionary the index, plus a random float, and then we're just going to debug.log the float. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this, because then we're going to go into a loop on our dictionary, and we're going to go through every key value pair, and we're going to print back out the key and the value. And we're going to do our other stuff, just to keep the log clear. Let's get rid of these. And we don't need to do that anymore, because we've already fixed that issue. Oh no, we'll keep that. Why not? And then we're going to go into another loop, and then try and add to our dictionary again. And we're going to do the same thing. So while 0 is less than 5, we'll add that index into our dictionary, and then we're going to print them back out. So let's see if that will work. Let's jump back over to Unity. So we're going to go through, this is our dictionary, we can see that's working fine, but then we hit this one. So an item with the same key has already been added, key 0. So it's breaking on the first kind of loop around. And if we read through what's going on here, we can see again, that's line 42. We're trying to add to our dictionary, but we can already see that the dictionary contains a key, and we can have duplicate values, but the key has to be different every time. We can't have the same key. So what we could do is we could increase this to say less than 10, and then we could actually put if my dictionary dot contains key I. And we'll do if it doesn't contain EI. If it doesn't contain key I, which is our index, then let's add it. So this should go from 0 to 4 in this version, and it'll print them out. And then we're going to go through it again, and it won't give us an error because we're not going to be duplicating trying to add anything in, because we're only doing it if it doesn't already contain the key. So let's jump back over, hit play. There you go, we have no more errors. Okay, so for the last kind of tip, let's hit play and see what the error is here. So you can see we've done a lot of stuff, but we've got this issue here. So let's click this. So we've got that same issue that we've had previously. So object reference not set to an instance of an object. If we double click that, you can see here that that's this. We're trying to debug.log this empty list. It hasn't been initialized. So we've seen how to fix that issue by making sure that we declare our list and actually create it. So we know how to fix that. But sometimes you might be confused as to why this is throwing up an error, and like what specific chain of events is causing this method to be called. Now you can see in some IDEs, you can see which scripts are using it. We can click one usage here and it'll show us where exactly we are using it. But if you click the script, you can see here that going backwards in time, it shows you the chain of events. So the issue here, we've got, it's in this test method on our test class in the issue namespace, and it's line 12. So that's this here. We know, like I said, we know how to fix that. We can initialize it by setting it equal to an instance of a new list. And test method is being called by my protected method, which in turn is being called by my method, which in turn is being called in the start function. So we can actually track back the chain of events. So we can see here that in our start on our issues tester, we're calling my method. And then from my method, we're calling my protected method. And then from my protected method, we are making a new instance of our class and then trying to call test method. So that isn't necessarily about how to fix this issue, because again, we have figured out how to do that. We'll just fix it like this. So that will have fixed that issue, but that showed us how we can follow a chain of events back from within an error log. You can see we no longer get that error. So I hope this video was useful. I tried to go through them quite quickly to cover them off. They are very common issues that people have. Hopefully this all made sense to everyone. If it didn't, I would suggest just going back through it again. But the main takeaway from this video is just read the error logs, double click them, just use a bit of logic, and you should be able to figure out kind of what exactly is going on and what the problem is, just based on the issue there alone. Because being able to problem solve yourself and not relying on the comments or other people to try and help you, and eventually by learning all this, you'll move away from following tutorials and you'll start to be able to kind of research things yourself by reading through the Unity documentation. But yeah, I hope this video was useful. As always, this information was not free. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you need to hit that subscribe button as payment. I'm sorry. And if you are subscribed, your payment can be a little cheeky like by clicking the like button. But yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. I'd just like to take a minute to thank my Patreons. In the 10,000 XP tier, we have Pote, I don't know how you say that. And in the 4,000 XP tier, you can see all of those lovely supporters on screen now. Thanks everyone for your support.